I received a request on one of my videos from Jules H to discuss the physiotherapy and occupational therapy MMI practice questions on UBC's set of practice scenarios. Now, just because we're talking about physiotherapy and occupational therapy does not mean that these are not related to medicine MMI, right? So these are still going to have some topics that you're going to see which are going to be useful for people who are preparing for the med school interview. So don't just go ahead and exit this video and move on to the next one. I still recommend watching these next few videos on occupational therapy and physiotherapy. The concepts are still extremely relevant. Now, if you have a request for any MMI scenario you want me to discuss, just leave a comment in one of my videos, either copy and paste the scenario or provide me a link with where you can find it, and I'll be glad to make you a personal video with that scenario, because chances are other people can benefit from that as well. So I'm always free to do it. I'm making this one 3 days after it was requested. So go ahead and take a look. This is the UBC set of practice scenarios. At the end, we have some other, physiotherapy, nursing, occupational therapy, pharmacy, all these other MMI sample scenarios, but they all are relevant to the medical system, right? So you'll see this one over here. As a physiotherapist, you are referred to a 16-year-old for treatment of severe burns that limit function on the patient's arms and hands. Upon examination, you notice other burn marks and unexplained bruises on the patient. After working with the patient for a few weeks, you ask about the other marks on the patient's body. The patient admits to being abused by their parents, but begs you not to tell anybody. What do you do? Let's go ahead and take a look at this one. So let's open up the blackboard over here. All right. So in this case, we are the physiotherapist, and just because we are not a doctor, we still have certain things that we want to look out for. So we are the physiotherapist. So we are the PT, and we have a patient over here. So what do we know about this patient? We know that they are 16 years old. We know that they have severe bruises on their body. And we know that they admit to being abused by parents. Doesn't want you to tell anybody. Doesn't want to tell anyone. He begs you not to tell anybody. Okay. So what do we do in this case? Well, we know we want to go ahead and just write out what the problem is so we can ask the right questions in the collecting information, because asking questions is going to be really important for this part. So what is the problem, right? Patient being abused by parents. Begs you not to tell anybody. Now, you guys, assuming that you watched all the other MMI practice scenarios leading up to this one, you probably will be able to identify what the two conflicting ideas are in each case now that we look at them, right? We know this one right away. It's, between helping this patient out and doing the right thing, and a conflict between, patient confidentiality. Or I shouldn't even say patient confidentiality. The wishes of the patient is the best way to put it, because he doesn't want you to tell anybody, but you want to help him out. So what do you do in this case? We see we have this tough balance. Now, it might seem like we can't pick an appropriate answer, because if we do one thing, we go against the other. And if we do the other thing, we go against the other one. So what do we do in this case? Let's go ahead and ask some questions. There's a lot of questions we're going to want to ask here. Collect information. Okay, let's make a little bit of room here. Okay, let's start off here. What questions do you want to ask? How long has this been happening for? How long have your parents been abusing you? What injuries have they caused you in the past? So we can fit that on one line. Yes, I can. What injuries have they caused you in the past? How frequently Have these injuries occurred? Have they done this? These three questions here, we really want to get an idea of what we're up against here, right? We know that, child abuse is a horrible thing. It's absolutely horrific. So we know it's a bad thing. We want to see how bad it is. We want to see how frequently these things are happening, so we know what type of timeline we're dealing with, because we are going to find a way to help this kid. But we want to see how we're going to go about doing it. So you want to ask a few questions just to get all the information to see, is he going to be abused every single day? Is he abused, once a year? Any form of abuse is bad, don't get me wrong. And clearly these are not, spanking injuries, right? These are not from just, punishment. These are some serious injuries here. So, what exactly are they for, right? So that's another thing we can ask, what's the motive? Maybe it is. Maybe the parents think this is some sort of punishment, right? We saw, last year in the NFL with the Adrian Peterson incident where, he, I don't want to go ahead and think what he said, but he thought he was simply punishing the child and he thought he was within his rights. So, what is their motives? That's one thing to consider, right? Maybe they think that this is punishment, right? So that's one thing to take into consideration. Is this their form of punishment? Or maybe it's something else. They have anger problems, they have alcohol problems, they have drug problems. So we want to find out what their motive is. Chances are the kid will have an idea what their motive is. These parents don't just hurt their kid for absolutely no reason. That could be, maybe that's the reason they hurt them for no reason, because they are psychopaths. So that's something to consider. What is their motive, right? If they think it's punishment, then there's probably a good pathway to go about solving this, but we want to know what it is. So we have an idea of what we're up against and what our timeline is going to be with these first three over here. What is their motive? Now we want to go into the other questions, right? Have you told anyone else? That's a difficult one as well, because chances are if he has trusted a physical therapist who he's known for a few weeks, there may be a possibility he has told a friend or he has told a relative who he trusts. It's also difficult because if you can't trust your parents, think about it. If you can't trust your parents, who can you really trust? And if you've been being abused for your entire life, I would have a lot of trouble trusting anybody if I couldn't trust my parents. At least I'm just speaking for myself. I've never been in a situation like this, but I know that if I grew up not trusting my parents, I probably would have trouble trusting other people. Probably have trouble making friends. But ask him if he's told anyone else, right? And what have they suggested to him. Another one over here. Why don't I don't want to say why don't you want me to tell anybody else, because obviously I don't want other people to know it. I don't want to say it's an embarrassing thing, but it's not something you want everybody to know about. Why don't let me rephrase that. Why wouldn't you want me to tell child services? Help you report this to child services. And I want to put one more add-on before I discuss that. What do you know about child services? And what happens to child abusers? Now we are dealing with a 16-year-old here. So the 16-year-old will have a good grasp on certain ideas like that. So you want to tell them what he knows about, what do you know about child services? What do you know what they do to child abusers? And why don't you want me to report this to child services? And if you've watched many videos in this series, you'll have an idea of where I'm going to be going with these things, because perhaps there's a chance that this person is a little bit misinformed with what would happen if, what would happen in these cases, right? Remember, a 16-year-old will normally have a good grasp of these ideas that I just mentioned, but if you've been living your whole life in abuse, you may have a different outlook than the norm of someone that age. So keep that in mind. So let's head into the solutions part. Or actually, we should restate the problem, right? That's what I say we should do after we have asked all our questions. So restate problem. I want to help this patient being abused, who is abused without breaking his request to tell nobody. I want to help this patient who is being abused without breaking his request. That's what we want to do. We want to find a way to balance both of these things. The patient asks me to do one thing, but my morals tell me I need to do something else. We want to find a balance, right? So automatically, we're going to go into our solutions. We're going to start drafting our solutions. And we can automatically identify that we're going to have two extremes, which we should just get out of the way right away. Two extremes, tell nobody. So you respect the patient's wishes and tell nobody. Respect the patient's wishes and tell nobody. And the other extreme is report the parents to child services immediately, right away. Now, these are two extremes, and we know that extremes generally are not the right pathway. Now, it seems, strange. You might say, well, the right pathway is not making sure this kid doesn't get abused anymore. I mean, we don't know what these parents are capable of, right? Child abuse normally, or not, I shouldn't say normally, but has a chance to end in death, right? I mean, we don't know. It could get worse and worse. If this is an alcohol-related problem, we don't know what these parents are capable when they are inebriated. So it's one thing we want to consider, but, right away, the wrong answer is to report them right away. Well, that's going to go against the child's request, right? Now, like I said, there's going to be some middle ground here, right? We are, at least you got to take a stance here, right? Personally, I would be unable to walk away from this case knowing that this kid's still going to be abused, right? So automatically, I know that in the end, I'm going to be arriving at something along the lines of this. But the way that I arrive at it is going to be, the right or wrong part of this entire case. Now, morally, I want to arrive at that situation, but how I arrive there, I'm not going to go directly, right? Now, we know that, like I mentioned above here when I was asking these last questions over here, right? These last two questions that I was asking, we ask these questions because somebody who has been abused their entire life, and this could tie in to the questions we asked up here, which is how long has this been going on and how frequently do they hurt you and all this. Someone who has been abused their whole life may have a different outlook on the world. They might not know what child services are. Perhaps the parents have actually brainwashed the kid, right? They might have told the kid that child services are going to hurt you, or that if you call child services or somebody calls child services, I'm going to hurt you even more. They might have said something like this, right? So it's another thing you might want to even ask there. Have your parents told you anything regarding child services? This will probably be brought up with these questions over here. So that's one thing. That's going to be the big, the main solution we're going to have here, which is, what do you know about child services? Because presumably when you are asking, or the patient asks you not to tell anybody, he's mainly talking about, don't tell child services. He's not saying don't go ahead and tweet this out to your friends. He's really talking about child services. So, what do you know about child services? What are the consequences? Have your parents mentioned the consequences? What do you know? I should say, what are your expectations on how they can help you? right? That's the big one, right? And all those questions we asked up here are all going to be coming down to the solution pathway. So find out what the patient knows about child services, what are their expectations, and how they can help you. The other option that I would have here, right? That's really the main solution pathway that I'm going to go about. I'm not going to go directly to the parents, right? Because if I go directly to the parents, I realize I'm going to put this kid in trouble. If I'm going to be intervening or assisting in the intervention of the situation, it has to be through professionals such as child services who are going to be able to make sure that the extraction of this child is going to be quick so that there's no big investigation leading up to it where the kid could be subject to more hurt. So I'm not going to intervene directly, right? I'm not even going to list that as a solution. I guess I'll list it as a solution here, but we know we're not going to go anything with it, right? So intervene directly by confronting parents. Say when they were to come pick the kid up from physiotherapy, right? Because you'll have an opportunity to interact with them, but we know we're going to cross that off in a moment anyway. And last one over here, I'll just add another option here. Consult APTA, right? I think it's American Physical Therapists Association, right? The board, for example. You can consult them on what you would do with this case. You can actually go ahead and receive guidance from more experienced individuals who may have actually encountered something like this, who may be able to assist you on that way. So, you have the opportunity to discuss with the patient, right? So we go ahead and knock some of these options off right here. Whoops, how do I change my font color? What did I just do? There we go. So the palette, I just opened some windows on top of the place where I changed colors, and I wasn't able to change colors. So what are our options over here? Respect the patient's wishes and tell nobody. Well, this is a terrible pathway, right? Because can we, are we just we can't just, you're not looking out for the best interest of the patient. So not. This kid is clearly scared, and we just can't say, okay, I realize that you're being hurt, and I will let you be hurt for, 2 more years until you can move out. You might not even be mentally ready to move out because you've been abused your entire life. Who knows what the situation was? We're not going to go ahead and just cross this off. Just because we're a physical therapist does not mean we should not be looking out for the best interest of this patient. If you know that anybody is being abused, there is probably, this whole pathway we're looking at can be used to actually approach the person and figure out what you should do to help them out. So we're going to cross that off. Now this over here, report the parents to child services. I'm going to cross this off. And the reason I'm crossing off is you are not respecting the patient's wishes, so not respecting. You aren't respecting the patient's wishes, but you're not only are you doing that, you're still going to be arriving at this. You will indirectly arrive at reporting this to child services. It's going to happen one way or another. We're not going to just sit on this and not say anything about it. But there's not only this, there's better ways to arrive here. Without breaking patient's wishes. Okay, so we have these paths over here. This one over here, like I said, we're crossing this out right away. I just listed it because it's a possibility, but you could subject patient to more abuse. Because we know, based on the questions we asked, we might find out that the parents would hurt this child if anyone were to find out. We don't want the parents to know that we know this right now. So we have these two solutions over here, and I actually want to combine these two solutions, right? This is what I want to do, right? We're going to ask the kid, what do you know about child services? What are your expectations? Perhaps the parents have brainwashed this kid by telling him lies, that, things that would happen if you were to call child services, right? That we'll hurt you if this happens, or these people are going to take you away and put you in prison. Or that you're just as guilty as we are. Who knows what this kid's been told? So what you're going to do is you're going to ask him what he knows and what his expectations are of child services. You're going to provide him with correct information. Correct information. About how child services can help protect him. And now, after the kid has been correctly informed, remember, this kid could be brainwashed. This kid may have ideas that are not correct. Remember, he's only a 16-year-old who has probably lived a different life than most of us have. What are his ideas? So once he has correct information, ask him again if he wants help. If he wants you to if he says no, right? So here, this is sort of tying into because we are going down the solution pathway, we'll be taking it. So this is gonna be the actual plan of action part. If he says yes, report it. Provide the information you know to you have to child services. Probably recommended that you document the injuries. I don't know what the actual rules for being a physical therapist. If taking pictures of the injuries with the patient's permission, if he obviously agrees to this, would be breaking some sort of conduct. But that's just another. It's not necessary here. Provide all the information to child services. Proof of the injuries. But if you are going to be reporting this quickly, chances are you won't need to actually have visual proof. They're probably not going to heal in time if you're reporting it right away. But it's an option available. If he says no, still says no. If he still says no after you've given him all the correct information, I would go up and take this pathway over here, right? Everything that you've done in this pathway over here, you've provided him with information to help him. You've not broken any form of confidentiality, but if he still says no after you provide him with all the information and you make sure that he understood the information, so make sure you had him repeat it back to you and make sure he really understands what the information is. Then I would go about consulting the board, or consult I don't want to say a higher power, consult some person who is higher than you on the case, right? Someone who's more experienced. So it says no. I'll go about consult the APTA. Right over there. And ask them for guidance on what you should do in this case, because this is a very delicate case. You want to make sure you don't screw it up. You want to make sure you don't do something wrong that's going to put this patient in danger. Simply providing with information on how child services works and telling him that you are here to help him out if he needs help, that's all fine. But you can't go ahead. I wouldn't go ahead and just break his confidentiality. If he has all the information and he still doesn't want, I would go ahead and consult the APTA and see what they have to say. That you want to have information from a higher end of the company, or the physical therapist, I shouldn't say company, the order of physical therapists. You want to have more information, and these are the two final situations that I would arrive at over here. So after you give him all the information, if he says no, go consult the APTA. I wouldn't go ahead and break his request right now. But remember, we're going to consult them, and then we'll eventually end in CS report. You will eventually report the parents to child services. Just getting the right way is going to be the way we go at it. So this is my method of tackling this physical therapist MMI practice scenario. Just because it's a physical therapist scenario does not mean the things we learn here won't apply for medicine. I think this is a really tricky case, right? Because we have to balance these two distinct ideas. If you have any questions regarding this, please leave a comment below. This video was at the request of Jules H. If you have any requests, you want me to solve problems, leave them in the comments below, and I'll make a video within a few days. I'll have a few more videos that she requested coming up after this one for occupational therapy, so make sure you check those out as well. Once again, they are still relevant to the MMI scenario, still relevant topics. See you guys in the next video.